Hello and welcome to our brand new episode of Adolescence Unfiltered, where we bring to you true talks and unfiltered stories. This podcast is brought to you by the Health and Family Welfare Department, Meghalaya. I am your host, Evangeline, and I have with me Ilarissa, who has already been here on this podcast. But for the new viewers out there, please could you introduce yourself again?
Yes, so I'm Ilarissa and my surname is Lamin. I have to mention that I'm a Lamin because I take pride in being a Lamin.
Hi everyone, my name is Chanmi Lingdo and it's a pleasure to be here. I'm so thankful that you invited me here.
Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much. Ila has already been here a couple of times before. I think 2 times.
Yeah.
This will be your 3rd episode. You're that good. We have to call you back. And I know you, Chanmi will be as good too. So the topic for today we will be discussing is on mental health, which is a huge issue faced by most teenagers these days, right? It's very prevalent, and of course there is the stigma surrounding it. We will be discussing that and many more. What are the kinds of challenges or the mental health issues that teenagers these days do go through? And this will just be a perspective from the teenagers' side. We will also have in a future episode an episode with the mental health expert talking about giving the professional perspective on professional take on what we discussed today. So let's get into it.
Sure.
What, according to you, is a sign or an indicator of good mental health?
For me, I don't have a specific answer to that. Do you?
In my perspective, a good sign of mental health would be the body language of having confidence with a person. So if a person have more confidence and like socializes more, it shows that he has a good mental health, like it's positive. He's doing well in his life. And as you can see, you can compare also with other people who have social anxiety, because that's another factor of mental illness. So having a positive and confidence, having a high level of confidence shows that a person has a positive mental health.
But there's a lot of contradictory when we say that, right? Because I know a lot of people who are going through and suffering through mental health, and they're like the happiest people I've ever seen. Like they're like always the most positive one, the upbeat one. They're like always jolly. Ones. Yeah, the quirky ones. They make other people laugh. Yeah. They're always the funny one in the group.
Yeah.
But, when the doors are closed and we never know what's going on behind a person's mind or what they're dealing with, right?
I mean, it's different for everyone because mental health in itself is so vast of a topic and it's different for everyone. For Chanmi, it could be different. For you, it could be different. What could seem like a big life crisis for me.
Yeah.
For Chanmi, it could be just something
Surface level.
Surface level.
Yeah, exactly. So it's different for everyone, so to say.
So what, according to you, in your teenage groups, right, among your friends or your peers, I'll say, what are the most common issues faced by teenagers these days when we speak in a mental health perspective? Like what are the things they're mostly dealing with?
Well, so far I have spoken with my friends. I've become more open with my friends, and I've seen that in the previous years, academic stress, yes, indeed, everybody has been struggling with academic stress throughout the years. However, I feel like our generation in general, is just we've become more sensitive when it comes to academic stress.
Most people, they've been very sensitive about it. Some people, we can compare generations, like the generation previous, before us, our parents' generation, their academic level, the syllabus compared to us might be more or lesser than us.
Yes.
And it also comes we have to take into consideration the capacity level of every person. It's not the same. Not everyone has the same intelligence. So some might have a low capacity level, they can consume only a little bit amount of knowledge in their minds. So it also comes the academic stress can also come from the pressure given by the parents.
Yes.
The expectations held by the parents can also pressure us teenagers, the children, into trying to consume more and more, which leads to lack of sleep and not eating well, which all contributes to mental health issues, which gives a lot of stress and anxiety levels.
So stress, anxiety, and what else do you think is there?
Regarding stress, actually, Chanmi said just now about us not sleeping and not eating. So back in 2021, I wrote an article about it in the Shillong Times, letter city editor. And I wrote this particular line that, a very contradictory line that I'd say. That is, I wrote that, our mental, physical, and social health should not be sacrificed for the sake of numbers on a sheet of paper. So that was me in 2021. Me in 2023, when I was studying for my selections, I would only sleep like 1 hour before the exam, and then I'll go write the exam, and then I'll come back, I'll eat, and then I'll sleep, and then my whole schedule was messed up. So in that way, I was literally contradicting what I said. I was sacrificing my health for my marks.
But it's easier said than done, right?
Yeah,
If there's
exactly.
pressure from family or maybe from teachers or maybe on yourself, you put pressure on yourself as well to just maybe excel in whatever you're doing, which is normal. But, it reaches a point where it takes a toll on your mental health and it leads to problems of not being able to focus or lack of, like you said, lack of sleep or eating. So what can we do as a society? Because we see that there's a lot of stigma surrounding mental health, right?
Yes.
So we hear things like, oh, he's just pretending or she's just seeking attention, which is something I've experienced and seen with my own eyes. I have a friend who is currently going through a lot of mental problems, I'll say. She goes through these anxieties, she gets seizures, so much so that it affects her physical well-being as well. So every time in the classroom, because she can't sit still, she's always getting anxiety. So what people who have anxieties, I don't know if you've noticed, but they can't sit still in one place. They always want to move. They can't sit in one place for too long or concentrate for too long in one thing, right? So she would always want to go out of the classroom and ask for an excuse. And then my teacher would she's just seeking attention. And she was literally struggling to breathe
That
to that
actually
point. And then my teacher was
does
like, she's just seeking attention.
most people deem mental health as less important than physical health, because when we look at a person who's healthy physically, the person doesn't have to take any medication, the person can basically do anything and everything for himself. So usually we just deem that person to be healthy because, well, what we see a healthy body, so we don't, it never strikes us much about the mental aspect of our health, because usually even when I speak to someone, when I see them walking and behaving normally, so
like
to say,
the body language.
the body language, right? Like what you said earlier, that was what most people would see. They'd be like, oh, the person is healthy.
Like connects instantly to the mental health.
Exactly. But then the thing is, I feel like we mask out a lot very often. We mask our emotions. Is that like a right term to say?
Masking your emotions.
Like it's like this meme I've seen, not a meme, it's actually a reel. It's like a sad one, like how a person, he's like very happy outside, he came from work making everyone laugh and all, and he comes inside in front of the mirror, it's like he just this, and he's like, it's like it shows like he's taking off a mask, a mask which is like smiling and all, where inside is like truly sad and all. It's like very sad to see that.
It's a reality.
So what can we do to break this sort of a stigma? What do you think as individuals or as a fellow teen that we can do to help break this stigma around mental health?
Thing is, we're not here exactly to give answers, like you said earlier. I'd say for me, from my perspective, to break the stigma, well, it's not, Rome wasn't built in a day. It's not going to happen right now, right away. It's going to take a lot of time. We have to start basically from the grassroots of everything because, well, starting at home, basically, because everything starts at home. They say there's a saying. So maybe what we can do for now, for me, in my perspective, at home, we can start, being, because I've noticed that certain families, you are together, you eat, you sleep together, and you do everything together, but you never have those conversations, heart-to-heart conversations. Like just yesterday, when I was preparing for today, I had a very heartfelt conversation with my mother, and it was, brought us to tears, so to say. And I wish that, it was more common for other families as well, because what I have with my mother, I'm pretty sure not everybody has the privilege to be open with their parents. So I feel like we should start from our homes, our friends circle, try to support each other, because see, the thing is, when somebody is sad, like what I've seen, and somebody is sad, and when you try to help the person, usually the person will deny the help. They'll just be like, "No, I'm fine, I'm okay, I don't need help."
Yeah.
But the thing is, persisting the person is itself is not going to help.
Yeah.
Because there's been certain instances where, I've seen people get irritated.
Yeah.
I myself as well, I've experienced that, because when I lost my grandfather recently, I've had several people who were reaching out to me because the grief that I experienced, I still am going through grief right now, but it's like slowly I'm trying to become normal again. But back then I'd have friends who would come to me and talk to me, that asked me if I was doing okay. And the thing is, I don't know why exactly do we humans deny that there's something wrong with us, but we have that tendency to deny it. But as humans, we have that intuition, no? The gut, when you know something is wrong, even if it's not with yourself, with a different person, you get that intuition and you're like, no, there's something wrong. So I feel like maybe one of my friends, she maybe got that thing.
Yeah.
And she reached out to me. And when I say reaching out, it doesn't mean that, the person has to be a professional, that you need to know exactly what to say, what to do. It's not exactly about knowing what to say and what to do, because we're all teens. We're just clueless ourselves. We don't even know most of the things that life has for us to offer. But then, just being there for a person.
Something just
supporting
simple
them.
as just being there physically and not even doing it, just sit
Exactly. Just
and just
sit with
in
the person.
silence.
Sit in silence.
and just listen.
You're just there for the person. As long as you're there. I mean, I'm not saying that, because for some people it's not possible for that to happen. But
Everyone's different.
exactly, everyone
Like,
is different.
I can tell, like, for guys, it will be different for guys the way they want to open up. Like most guys, in my perspective, they don't usually want to open up because of the stereotypes.
Yeah.
Because they always see like
Men should,
men should
be
be strong, mentally prepared. So most guys, in my perspective, they always bottle up their emotions.
Yeah.
And then for a long period of time, it just keeps on adding up. And then one day, it comes to a point where they can't handle it anymore. And obviously, most cases have we seen it results in suicides and everything, which is very sad. Well, I don't really know about the girls' perspective to the stereotypes. From what I've heard, it is kind of sounding like they're easygoing, but then obviously even the girls also have like a different type of pain they go through, the issues they go through. They always obviously have a different, like a level of capacity that they can hold.
I feel like problems like mental health knows no gender, right? It's like if it affects you, it affects you.
Affects
You
you,
could be a
yes.
woman or a man or maybe other genders, like whatever you are. But it's there, it's there. I mean, you can't deny the fact just because you're a guy that you're not supposed to feel depressed or you're supposed to be strong. We should, first step into breaking the stigma is breaking the stereotype on who should feel sad and who shouldn't. We cannot have the say on who should be sad and who should not be sad. Mental health is just more than being sad, or it's a feeling that we can't describe
Exactly.
unless you are really going through it, right? We fail to understand that it's okay to not feel good.
Yes.
You feel your emotion. It's okay to be. We're human beings. We can't just be like happy all the time, or But
We were blessed with this many emotions.
Yeah.
So many emotions that we don't even know the names of.
yeah. So like if somebody, like you said, if your grandfather passes away and you feel sad about it and you feel all these kinds of emotions, you feel it. It need not necessarily because or just because she's a woman, she feels it more than guys. And if someone close to you maybe passed away or something, I mean, it would be the same. And there's like no need for us to be like, oh, we should just be better or become happy instantly. There's like that's like also like a thing too. We just want to be happy all the time.
Yeah, and the thing is, when you're going through, for me, my current thing that I'm going through right now is grief. And the thing with grief is, in a way, because I've seen how my grandfather struggled, in a way, I wanted his suffering to end. But, it was like, I was still attached to him, but I didn't want him to go through all that suffering and that pain, just that agony that he was in. But I also wanted to hold on to him because he was just, we just had that very special bond. Because I come from a single parent family, and my grandfather has been my biggest father figure, so to say. And I never felt like, there were some moments, that I felt that, I wish I had a father, around me. But then my grandfather just fulfilled every aspect of it. And when I saw him in those days, he had mental strength. He had that sheer willpower of wanting to live. He was desperately fighting to live. But then, it was just not written in his fate. It was his time to leave and to go some other place. But that mental strength that I saw that my grandfather had, he had a smiling face throughout all those times of hardship. He was laying on that hospital bed, and every time I look at him, he'd just be, like he'd be laughing or smiling. And he does this thing, he just, like when I'd come, I'd literally be applying oil for him. There was at one time I applied so much oil for him that they could not scrub him when they came to give him a sponge bath. They couldn't get the oil off him because he was shining literally. So there'd be days when he'd be struggling, but the moment I'd come, he'd just be, he does that, Even when he was at home, he'd do that. And when I saw him back then, even now I remember his face. It sometimes gives me that, he gives me that strength to, get through things. There are times when I don't want to do anything, but then I just remember his face. And then I'm just like, oh, I remember him smiling. And I don't know why, but every time I speak about him, I feel good, but I also get teary-eyed.
Of course.
But that, if I were to speak about someone with a really strong willpower and determination, I'd have to, quote him, because what I saw, what he did when he was battling, it was something that I could have never even imagined. You won't see these things in movies, and you don't get these things in books. It was just a hands-on experience. And it wasn't just him over there. He was everyone in that ICU room, because he was in the ICU. So everybody there, they were all fighting their own battles. And that gave me a new perspective of being resilient. That taught me a lot. The hospital, the beauty of that lobby area over there, there's the operation theater and there's the ICU here. So sometimes, mothers would be operated for their C-sections, no? And sometimes at here, the family members outside, they'd hear the cries of the baby inside, and they'd all be happy and jumping, and they'd be, showing those really positive emotions of being happy. And sometimes what happens is the next door, somebody passes away. And, there's just a mix of emotions in that room. There's people grieving and there's people rejoicing in the very same room. And when I witnessed that, because I was right there, I was actually studying, and I witnessed that, it was just so beautiful in a way. And every time I'd interact with someone at the hospital, I met different types of people over there. Some that were the strongest people that I know, some that were struggling financially, they were struggling mentally, they were struggling with life in general, but they had that sheer strong determination for the person who was sick. Because most people that I interacted there were long-term attendants, because we were long-term as well. So as I spoke and as I interacted with them, I realized how precious our life is, and how our perspective changes things. It was I could see that they were struggling with the current ongoing situations, but maybe because it became like a community, we had a community, so we could express. Not everybody was open, but whoever was open, that share and that tell me. Sometimes I had a friend, she'd tell me about her hardships, and she would share with me what she's going through. And I also had my other friend, he was a patient, he still is a patient, and he was telling me about how he suffers with his condition. And that way, I got a different perspective of how people view things. And they as well got exposed to different perspectives of how to view things, how to view life in general. Because the person that I knew, he, in the initial days, he was very down. He was gloomy because, well, nobody wants to be sick.
Yeah.
And that, it was more like he kept thinking that he was sick. That is why it kept bringing him down. He kept thinking that he was sick and all that. And then, I didn't want to pry to him and, start, babbling to him. But then I was just like, I tried talking to him. I tried befriending him. And then slowly we became friends. And as we became friends, we became closer, and he started sharing how he felt. And I think that may have helped him because after that, I could see a few changes. No, it was not overnight changes, but since I was there for many
Gradually.
months as well, so I could see him being more friendly to the rest of the staff as well. And we just became more open. It's so, altogether, mental health is very, we have to approach it in baby steps. Rome wasn't built in a day, and similarly, our mental health, we can't improve it by just, doing something for one day and then we're just like, oh, okay, it fixes it. It's more of tiny baby steps builds.
Yeah, it takes time.
That's the thing about, like you said, no, you're with your grandfather being sick. Of course, it's taking a toll on you right now, going through the grief process. But at the end of the day, when you look back, and I know, judging by your stories that you've told me here on camera and off camera, that you were a good granddaughter. You took care of him. You did whatever you could to be there for him. So at the end of the day, there's no guilt or regret. The thing about what people today, as we see online, if we see a case of maybe suicide because of mental health, they start posting on their stories, but were they there for him when he didn't needed them, while he was alive?
Yes.
What's the point of you showing support when the person is already gone, right? The person is already dead and you're posting stories. Oh, I'm so sad. What a huge loss. We see especially young people taking their own lives. So rather than posting status about after something has gone
Which is
wrong, already happened, why not focus on
What is there in the present?
what is here in the present, and giving your effort and giving everything that you have, be it mentally, physically, just be there for a person, just be there to listen to what they're going through, right?
Yeah, and being there for a person doesn't even take much time. You only need like half an hour or just an hour a day also you can spare. It could be only 10 to 15 minutes a day. Like in a week, you can just talk to a person for 15 minutes or so, like 4 or 3 times a day. That helps a lot to a person also. Like at least the person is getting time to express himself and let it out. So it doesn't take much time to help also for other people.
So what about, have you had any personal experience when it comes to mental health? Has there been instances where you've I'm going through something, or maybe you know somebody who has gone through something?
Well, I did have like an instance. It was 2022 when I was still in class 10. So like the entire year, I was so busy and caught up with school activities that I completely forgot about the classes. I was never present for classes and all. I kept on going for one activity after the other. Then at the end of the year, when the exams came, that's when it like hit me that I wasn't there for any classes. Now what do? I don't have any explanation for any notes, any subjects. So before the exams, the whole entire week, I just sat down day and night, no sleep. I didn't eat. I just kept on staring at the book day and night, same thing. Like during the exams also, I did the same thing. And one thing happened during one exam that I went to write. I entered the exam hall. So I had this really bad headache because the previous night I did not sleep for like a week and all. I didn't eat properly. So I had this really bad headache. I couldn't even write anything because I was just putting my head down during the exam the entire time because I couldn't think properly because my head was just like being hammered and all. So the exam passed, like the exam ended. I went out, I got some air, I felt a bit better. So I usually go home alone, walking back home. So that day I was like, I told my friend, can I just go rest in your house a bit? So after I reached his house, I sat there for a while. And the other friends were obviously there. We were talking and all. And I just, while sitting in the room, I just felt a bit suffocated. I went outside to get some fresh air. And I didn't even know how it happened, but I collapsed outside. I collapsed outside for like 10 to 15 minutes. I didn't even realize. None of my friends realized because I was outside. They thought I was fine. So after I gained conscious, I woke up and then I went back in the room. I sat on the chair and then I blacked out on the chair. So from what my friends described, they said that I had some kind of a stroke.
Okay.
So thankfully, if I didn't go to my friend's house, I don't know what would have happened to me that day. My friends that day, after they saw me like having the stroke or something, they told me that they slapped so many times. They slapped my face and then they gave me water. Somehow I managed to regain conscious again. Everything was very blurry. I couldn't hear anything. And then they gave me food and water and all. After a while, they dropped me back home. After getting sleep and eating food again, I felt a bit better. So the stress I had at that time was like so much that I couldn't even think straight anymore. I didn't even feel like myself. It's like I didn't have any energy to do anything at all. So that adds up to stress and anxiety also.
Yeah.
Then it caused me like in the exam. Obviously, like thankfully I passed the exam. I was able to manage to write my boards exam. So it was like a lesson for me that I shouldn't skip my meals and I should get at least proper sleep. At least
Yeah.
6 hours of sleep is like more than enough. So I started early, like to study for my boards exam, and I went slowly. I didn't even take much stress because I just told myself that I'll do whatever I can. It doesn't matter if I get no percentage also, as long as I pass. So I did that. I studied like two hours in the morning, 2 hours in the afternoon, and 2 hours in the evening. I'd make sure to go out as well because I need to refresh my mind also.
Yeah.
I can't just be locked up in one room and just keep on constantly looking at the book. Or while you're at home alone also, you constantly check your mobile also
Yeah.
at that time. And if you have the wrong feed at that
Yeah.
time, it also like counts in, like
Yeah.
takes a toll on you. So I'd make sure I'd go out like at least 2 or 3 times a week to like be fresh and all. So I did well during my exams and all, and then I realized that okay, instead of like focusing on getting high marks, it's not that important because what got me out of like trying to focus and keep on studying, I could have died that day because of the stroke. So I realized that my health was more important than the marks that I need to achieve. So from that day onwards, I made sure that at least I have proper sleep.
I feel as a society in itself, there's so much pressure, right? Academically, there's always, oh, it's not straight A's, it's
We live in a cutthroat competition.
the cutthroat competition world whereby we're pressured into being the best. Academically, we have to excel. But we fail to realize that the end goal is to be healthy and happy, and not what good is your A or your grades going to do when you are suffering mentally and you're not happy, and when you're all alone and all you could think is to take your own life, or maybe to just not talk to anyone, right? You have no one to share it with at the end of the day, right? If you're always constantly pressuring yourself into studying, you're always at home, you have lack of socialization, there's lack of socialization. And if that takes a toll on your mental health, physically you're not eating, you're physically sick. So it's all interrelated. Like you said, no, the definition of mental health is a person who is physically, mentally, and socially healthy. So it all connects. I mean, it's important for people to understand that not just physical health is important, but if a person is suffering mentally also, if a person is suffering physically, they go through a mental health, which is why even in hospitals, they have counselor for people who are going through a terminal illness like cancer or anything, because just the thought of knowing that you're not going to live, like how scary is that, right? So, but for us living continuously, like who are healthy physically, if we are suffering mentally, we can't eat. So that way also our physical health is affected.
Yes.
So yeah, but there's a lot of fear in reaching out, right? Don't you feel that amongst teens or everyone who's going through mental health? There's a lot of fear of reaching out, saying that oh, they'll give me medicines. There's a lot of controversies, right, into taking antidepressants and pills like
Just
that.
talking to a professional, just hearing the word, professional or a
Psychiatrist.
psychiatrist, people usually just associate it with being crazy.
Crazy.
And they never, because see, the thing is, we live in a society where we don't really care about our mental health as much as we do about our physical health. So even when mental health does, like when somebody is trying to reach out, oftentimes, because for teens, we usually have to consult an adult first before we go somewhere, or even if we did manage to reach that particular place by ourselves, at the end of the day, some sort of consent form or something where they require an adult would be required for us wherever we go. So there'll be instances when, even though somebody tries to reach out, they're usually shunned down by constricted, yes, by their by the adults, that their guardians, so to say. Usually their guardians don't deem it as
A problem.
a problem.
altogether.
For example, if a person is, let's say, depressed, now usually one of the signs of depression, they say they don't have that motivation or that feeling that they want to do anything, or just getting out of bed in itself seems impossible, right?
Yeah.
And oftentimes what happens is parents, because yes, as teens, we tend to procrastinate a lot.
Yeah.
We are basically pros at procrastinating. Being lazy is one of the definitions of being a teen.
Yeah.
And oftentimes parents miss out on that little sign. They just they don't see their teen suffering. What they see is their teen not doing the dishes, or not doing their homework, or not
Yeah.
studying. Just they don't have that, how do I say it? Like, for example, let's just say my mom. Okay, let's state an example for my mother. So if, for instance, I wouldn't want to do anything. I didn't want to eat. I didn't want to sleep. I didn't want to do anything. I was just there like a ball of God knows what.
Yeah.
And then my mother reached out to me and asked me, and we had a conversation about what was exactly going on with me. So oftentimes that is, well, what I have, my relationship with my mother is a privilege. It's a blessing that I've been blessed with. And it's sad that not everyone is, equipped with having a support system within their family. Because it's so important for us to have an emotional support system. Like you said earlier, your friends, it was like your kind of your support system, your group. And for me, it was maybe the hospital, the people at the hospital, and my mother. But we have our support systems, and there are some that don't have that support system. They don't have that, they don't trust anyone around them. Maybe their family members, they tried reaching out, but they were just, like you said, they tell them that they're just seeking attention or something like that.
Or they're just lazy, they don't want to
Just
do
lazy,
anything.
yes. So oftentimes, as humans, we're social beings. And it's so weird that we have to speak our feelings out. We have to let our emotions out. But that is seen as contradictory. But then, like, people usually see that as controversial. When somebody speaks out about how they feel openly, they're like, why are you seeking so much attention? Not everybody wants to know what goes on in your life. Yes, indeed. Not everybody wants to know what's going on in everybody's life. But as humans, we have to have that communication with one another, to have that support system, because it makes so much of a difference if you have somebody who supports you. It could be somebody younger than you, somebody older than you, a teacher, a friend, or just somebody who you really trust. But everybody needs that support system, because if you don't get to communicate, that's when, like you said, they pile up. Everything piles up.
Basically bottles up all the emotion more.
And I feel like with people suffering with mental health, right, they don't have to see it. One factor is biological. We fail to realize that it's also biological in nature. So if you come from a long line of family who are very prone to having depression or being sensitive to things, right, they fail to realize that it's there, and you need not necessarily have an event for you to be sad about, or to be depressed about, or to have anxiety. It could be a small thing that could trigger a person, right? So we might not understand that, oh, why is she bothered by that? Why is she crying? Or why is she sad? Or why is she angry about something so small? And why has she shut off herself completely for us over something that's so stupid? Because we all have like we said, it's all tailored to how we see things, how we perceive things, perspective, right? So that is also one factor that causes people to go through these mental health issues. Biologically, it's there in their genes that they're, you know, they're sensitive towards things. So I have a friend also who is currently going through mental health, like I said. So what she has is she gets difficulty in breathing and she gets these strokes, right? So she comes from a family who's a little bit orthodox in nature. So whenever she would reach out, of course they've had her go to doctors, but not psychiatrists, just doctors. Not They thought something was wrong with her nerves. She did all kinds of tests. It came out, it came out positive or negative. Negative. It came out negative. So there was nothing could be found. So problems like mental health, you can't detect. You can't detect through a machine. It's only human nature or human being that can tell that, oh, this person is actually going through something, because a machine can't detect if you're sad.
Yes.
Maybe, I don't know if the world has become that advanced or not, but not that I know.
The caves, not knowing
There is
about
no
it.
machine like, it's getting, oh, she's depressed, oh, she has anxieties, or she's going through stress. So they couldn't find anything. And when she reached out to her family, they were like, just pray, which is also a way of coping. It is a way of coping. It's good to have faith, to have a higher power to believe in that everything is going to be all right. That is like you are manifesting that everything is going to be okay. But do you think it's really all that you need to do to feel better or to help deal with your mental health?
Well, see, for me, I am a person who believes. Well, it's like it. There's those instances when people say it hurt so bad I cut my hair. So for me, it was more like it hurt so bad I went back to God, because I have been brought up as a Catholic. However, I didn't have a relationship with God back then. No, but then, like as I've gone through things, I've realized a little bit more that prayer does help me. And the thing with faith is, the literal meaning of faith, in my perspective, is believing in something that could or could not be real. And that's the thing with faith for me. So that is why when people associate mental health issues and being faithful to God, it becomes very contradictory. Because yes, indeed, praying for some people is the only means that they have as a coping mechanism, like some say, no? However, for others, they need extra help.
Yeah.
Extra help. And the thing is, recently what I've seen is that many people, they lose their faith, especially in times of trials, in times of hardship. And that's when, because mentally they're definitely disturbed, which is what caused that. And when they stray away from that path, they sometimes opt for alternatives such as smoking or drinking or drug abuse and all that. Because, well, as humans, we sometimes, we're very gray sometimes, but when it comes to ourselves, we are very black and white. It's either this or that.
Yeah.
We don't look at, in a broader perspective, so to say. It's either black or it's either white. There's never anything more than black and white when it comes to ourselves. However, for example, when you encounter somebody, like how you said your friend earlier, when you were trying to be positive and trying to tell him or her about to not spend on something, you said something like that, right? So see, from a different, like when you are speaking to someone, when you're looking at somebody else, you see broader aspects.
Yeah.
However, when it comes to yourself,
Yeah.
you're just like, it's either I do this or I do that.
Yeah.
So I think that's one thing that I have to say about me personally,
Yeah.
that I've seen in people.
Well,
Coping mechanisms, you could, like you said, having faith in a higher power also. Um, just like having faith in a higher power, you could like compare your situation and say like we can talk about like Christianity, how Jesus is like how he died on the cross for us, and we're here like only with little amount of problems, and we're like drowning ourselves in that, being sad and all. But then also in another way, you can use comparing also as a coping mechanism. Like we all said, it's all in the perspective. Like comparing, you can compare yourself, your problems to what your dad has been through. Like I compare myself with what my dad has been through. My dad has been through so much. He has gone through so much work, stress. He stays up all night working hard to make sure that I have food, water, and shelter, everything prepared. So I'm here thinking about my studies as stress and my social life, how why am I not having many friends and all. I'm just like drowning in these small little things, whereas in the big picture, he is going through much more problems than me. And he's doing so much, and he's like having such a high mentality, like his mental state is so good that I've never seen my dad cry. And I will never want to see my dad cry. So that's why I always like keep my dad there. I see him, I like he's my, I would say,
Role model.
role model. Like I can work hard. I can work much harder than him also to be better. And I always have this mentality of when I grow older, I will pay my parents back. I will be able to provide them with the things like they were not able to give us. I always want to make sure that my parents have the best. So having him as a role model and say that, okay, now my problems is just on the surface level. His one was way more deep. He's been through much more. And back in the days, they didn't even have much technology. It wasn't that much advanced. And I'm having it much easier than him. So I'm using the comparing as a coping mechanism. Like I can do much better than this, keeping a positive mentality.
But comparing can also lead to, of course, if you look at it in that perspective,
Yes.
it
Your
helps you.
perspective
Helps,
it all
yeah.
depends on
It's
the
a,
perspective.
Yeah, it's a good
It
one.
could be a negative.
This is the
it could
first
be
one I've heard
positive.
about comparing that,
Could be
it
used
leads
in a
to,
positive way.
yeah, looking at it the positive side. But now with social media, there's also, of course, social media has a lot of effect on mental health, when especially to teens, because they're always on their phones and consuming these contents and seeing these people online. And we had an episode on social media.
Social media, yes.
Early, but we've of course addressed there also that it takes a toll on mental health, right? When you're constantly comparing yourself, but this time in a negative way, trying to see why the things that you don't have, or like why does she have that? Where is she getting so many friends? Why is she so happy? Why does she look so perfect? There are very many instances where I've heard by mostly women that they get so self-conscious about their own body that they would like stop eating altogether. So that is also, eating disorder is a sort of a mental health problem where an individual refuses or can't eat. They're just so scared. It could be many factors, but one could be because they don't want to gain weight. So I know a situation whereby a girl went through this eating disorder and she would literally eat tissue paper. She would just ingest tissue paper. And even if they do go eat food, they would vomit it out. So it's sad. And at the end, like you said, perspective. We should be mindful of what we consume as content. Know that nothing we see is real, especially on social media.
Yes.
Right? Do you have anything to add to that?
Well, for me, social media, it did have a lot of positive like impacts now that I am a little bit more mindful of how I use it. But earlier on, back in 2020, 2021, lockdown, 20. My memory. Okay. Oh yeah, one thing. My memory, like ever since, I don't know, it seems like every time something happens, like something major happens, my memory kind of like
Shuts down.
it like totally erases things. Like what happened then
Yeah.
just goes whoosh.
Yeah.
And then randomly, like now I'm starting to remember everything like more clearly, That is why I'm able to tell you about what happened then, because right after something tragic happens, I
Yeah.
just tend to forget everything
Yeah.
too. like what happened exactly, what happened, how it happened. I don't remember it.
I feel your brain does that naturally. It just wipes off your traumatic experiences.
I think that could be it. Because like now, I mean, like yesterday when I had a conversation with my mother and we were discussing about, well, 10, 11 years back, what happened 10, 11 years back. And all throughout, I was very, like all throughout these years, I didn't remember any of this. But yesterday, suddenly, like I brought it up and then I was like, wait, I
Where
kind of remember this.
Yeah.
And then after that, my mother was like, yeah, go on. And then I kept going on and I could remember everything clearly, like that particular night, what exactly happened, how it happened.
Yeah.
And it just amazed me. I was like, oh, I was thinking what happened back then.
Yeah.
I couldn't remember, but now
You
I just
suppressed.
suddenly
Yeah.
remembered everything.
I think, is it natural for our brain to do that, to suppress traumatic experiences?
Don't know.
It might be also. Don't know much.
We'll find out the answers when the health expert comes.
We're not professionals, so
Yeah, but I've had instances like that whereby if I do go through a traumatic experience, I don't know what happened. Like most of my this sounds so traumatic. Most of my childhood memories I have been erased, so to say. So I don't remember what it was like. So I don't know people who are like, oh, when I was a kid, this happened, that happened. I'm like, what was my childhood?
Well, even like yesterday as well, no, when I was talking, because for me, all that while I remembered since 2013, that was when I joined St. Mary's. So before that, I didn't remember anything, like what happened in my preschool and all that. And yesterday, I just started remembering things, the people that were there back then
Yeah.
that are no longer here now. And then randomly yesterday, we had this very weird, strange conversation, me and my mother, and then we were talking about how, our lives could have been different
Yeah.
if that particular thing did not happen. And then after that, I was like, yeah, that I guess it could be nice. And then later on, I thought of it. And then I could remember even more of what happened. And I was like, no, good, we're good. As how we are, we're good.
Yeah, I mean, time heals everything, even mental health. Time heals, but of course, there's also you need to help yourself gradually, baby steps, like I said, help yourself. And if you feel like, even the viewers or listeners out there, if you feel like you're going through something very serious that you can't deal with personally, or you can't deal with by yourself, or you just can't have your friend help you, reach out to professionals. We will be giving a link in our description, numbers, helpline numbers on whom to reach out with when it comes to issues like this, because at the end of the day, we're sitting here as teenagers, like we said, what we're sharing is just our personal experience. This is just purely just us sharing our experience and not giving advice. Or if you can relate, or maybe if you feel like you feel differently also, please let us know. If we've said something wrong, please correct us. This is a safe platform for us to just see what we feel, right? So like you said, you come from a single parent family, and so do I, right? So a lot of teens, I'll say, that I talk to who do come from single parent family goes through a lot of mental health issues, in a sense that they feel, abandoned. There's a sense of abandonment, and that takes a toll on their mental health. Do you think that is a factor? Because as parents, they play a huge role, right, in defining how they feel or who they are as a person. So do you think the parents play a huge role in affecting the mental health of child?
Well, in my case, ever since I was young, my father, he didn't work this side, he worked outside. So he was not there around quite like how usually, when parents go to work, then they come back home.
Yeah.
So my father was mostly out throughout the week, and basically my whole childhood, I was only with my grandparents and my mother. So for me, I think and plus my parents separated when I was quite young.
Yeah.
So maybe from my perspective, my father not being around did not affect me so much because, it has always been that way. So I guess if he was more around, if he was around more often, maybe it could have affected me much more than it is currently right now. Because the thing is, when it comes to being from a single parent family, it usually is frowned upon.
Yeah.
Though it's very common, but it's usually frowned upon. And even sometimes when you're looking for admissions, sometimes, being from a single parent family gives you, the what cancels you out from one of the possible
Yeah.
candidates. So I'd say for me, wait, what is the question again?
I mean, does you being
Oh, yes. How does it affect? So parents play a very important role because for me, I have a very supportive mother. She is my emotional support system, and I'm really glad that I have the relationship that I have with her. And with this, as I'm growing, my relation and as my relationship with her grows as well, because every day we're growing.
Yeah.
So I've noticed that if we were not the way we were or we are, I would have turned out totally differently. The communication that I have with my mother is what helps me helps me to go through with my own day-to-day struggles.
Yeah.
Because she's my emotional support system, like I said. And earlier I mentioned about having a support system. So the relationship that I have with my mother, her being my pillar of support, has somewhat helped me with when I go through these challenges. It is maybe, I don't know, genetics, because like I said, my father had really good mental strength, and I've seen that in my mother as well, and I hope I have it too. Because, well, who doesn't want strong mental strength? But maybe if my mother was not the way she was, if I didn't have this relationship, the things that happened in my life would have led me to resorting to, negative or bad influences. Because there was a point when I almost, I fell under bad influence, but luckily I ran away from it.
yeah.
So, yes, parents play a very huge role because a child, I mean, not everybody would agree to this, wanting to go to their parents. But when you're small and you do something wrong, you obviously want to hide it from your parents. But eventually, you want your parents to say, it's okay, later. That's the one thing you want to hear from your parents.
Yeah.
So similarly, when it comes to our mental health as well, when something goes wrong, when we do something wrong, or when we're in a bad shape, I would want my mother to say, it's okay, it's fine, we can get through this. So in that way, parents are very crucial. That strong relationship to have with your child is really important because, like I said earlier, emotional support.
Emotional support. I don't know if you've noticed, but when you sit alone late at night and you're not doing anything, you just get these negative feelings,
Like, the
especially at
thoughts
night
just
if you can't
flow.
sleep. People who deal with insomnia, they are more likely to suffer from mental health, right? Because they're always constantly thinking about something negative. They're not acquainted, because at night, what will you do? During the day, you're well and about, you're acquainted with work, or you're acquainted with your hobbies or whatever it is. But at night, when you're left by yourself and your thoughts, that is what is scary.
Yes.
So if you keep yourself well acquainted throughout the day, you engage in physical activities, and then later at night you sleep better, and you're not dwelling on things that will affect your mental health, so to say. And for those who are going through a mental health issue, please reach out. Reach out, if not to your friends or maybe to your experts who are capable of helping you, right? I understand not everyone has the privilege of getting professional help, but we will have a link down below of a helpline number where you can reach out free of charge. You can call that number, and you can tell them what you're going through, and just take that one step towards admitting. First is just admitting that you are going through something. That's the one big thing, right? Just accepting it itself is very difficult for a person. It's very hard for a person who is actually going through something to say, like, hello, I'm going through something. there's something wrong with me, and I can't help to feel these emotion or these things, this urge of wanting to do things to myself, or the urge of not wanting to eat or not wanting to sleep, the fact that you don't want to do anything and you just want to sit the whole day. It's not being lazy. It's an actual thing that a person faces. It's an actual disease, so to say. It's an actual health problem that a person faces. It's not that you're lazy or anything. So one step is admitting towards how you feel or what you're going through. And then the other step is for you to reach out. So that will be the takeaway from today. Thank you so much for being here. This topic has been different from the rest of our topics in the podcast. So with that, we will conclude today's episode. We will further discuss this with our professional who will be joining in our next episode on mental health. We'll be getting a professional point of view on mental health and what causes it and how we can help and better cope with this problem. So this has been your host, Evangeline. Oh, please don't forget to like, share, subscribe to our podcast. We are available on YouTube and Spotify. And don't forget to follow us on our social ID, social handle. Social handle, Instagram @adolescenceunfiltered. And yeah, thank you so much for being here, guys. Thank you for all the viewers and listeners out there. If you have anything you want to say or want to share, please comment down below on the link or on the comment, or if not, on this anonymous submission link. Yeah, that has been today's episode. Thank you so much.